Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
So let's talk some author stuff. And we're going to talk about conferences and going to conferences, which you just went to one recently, which I find interesting because it's in a different country, which I haven't been to. I've been to Canada, but not a conference up there, is what I mean.
All right.
But before we do that, let me ask you a couple other questions. So
Certainly.
you have been writing for a very long time, and
hmm
you've done journalism, and now you're doing fiction. So, what are some things that you've learned through the years that you're doing differently now than you would have earlier?
Well, certainly the technology would be key. When I started, I didn't even have a cell phone. They weren't available. I had a pager, which was a bit of a pain in the butt at times.
Yeah,
And then there was a whole business of filing a story. It used to be. I remember the first semi-computer that I could take on the road was about the size of a big briefcase. It had a
right.
cathode ray tube, and you pretty much had to coat it in Vaseline to get it under the seat on an airplane. And it was a very delicate operation. Then you had to use acoustic couplers to stick it on a phone
The
line that would
modem. Oh my
squawk.
gosh.
It was it was a real challenge. So that the technology became ridiculously easy now. I remember I went to the museum in Washington, D.C., the news museum there, and they had one of these satellite trucks, uh, with the antenna that went out and so forth, and the TV reporters would be reporting from there. And I realize now my little phone has all that technology in this.
Right, right.
And that satellite truck, I'm sure, cost a $500,000 back in the day, but yeah, that part was definitely different. The actual hunting and gathering of quotes and the reporting, of course, it was made much easier with cell phones and so forth. But when I look back at some of the things I covered before I had that technology, earthquake in San Francisco, or a murder on the Mexican border, or the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Those were all things that I covered with pretty primitive technology and no cell phones.
Wow. So do you feel if you would have done fiction writing back then that you would have enjoyed it or been as successful, or do you feel that now that you've gone through your years of journalism, you can relax more with the fiction and it comes across? I mean, just how do you feel about that
Oh,
after years of?
I agree that I think I can relax now. For one thing, I've this may surprise you that fiction writing doesn't come with a dental plan or a pension. so,
Yes, if nobody
so
understood that fact.
imagine my surprise. But no, so that's why I wanted to make sure I was financially secure for before I turned to fiction, because as you know, it's not always the ticket to. I feel I've written an 80,000 word lottery ticket, but who knows what the odds are of ever cashing in on that. But yeah, anyway, I felt that I needed the security of not having to wrestle with where the next paycheck would come from. So that until the kids were grown, my two sons, and they left home, and my wife and I retired, then we figured, okay, now we can relax and breathe and use a different part of our brains. So
Nice. Okay. And you mentioned the technology has changed. So, what software and services are you using now for your fiction writing?
Actually, I just use Microsoft Word. I had I had used Scrivener, which is an excellent program, but I lost patience figuring out all the bells and whistles, and I realized that I could probably just get by uh, as I did as a reporter, basically with a more basic word processing
Okay.
software. So that's just what I use. I have occasionally stuck up things on a bulletin board as to my various plot points, but I don't even do that too much. I just push along one scene at a time. I usually write a scene a day, not necessarily a chapter, but a little movie in my head. And when the movie starts to flicker and fade, I figure, well, it's time to stop that one, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow. So
Yeah, I agree. I do that a lot too. I really envision the scene. It helps get the words down easier, and they sound better. They don't sound so
I
clunky
think
that way.
that was one of the gifts of journalism. I had to say, I spent, as I said, I recorded most of my interviews, and then you'd have to transcribe them, go through that. Now these days, I guess you don't need to. There's transcription software, but I never had that. But it required me to listen more closely and to pick quotes that are legitimate, but the quotes that encapsulate whatever issue I happen to be exploring. And that I realized works very well in fiction writing as well, because dialogue is an elusive beast. People stumble when they talk, as I am evidence of that right now. But you have to fake realism when you do dialogue. You have to make your people smarter and more concise and still realistic. That's quite a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, definitely agreed. So your book, you just got it out. What are you doing to market it besides podcasts? Are you doing anything else to get the word out?
Yes, I have a digital marketer who Amy, who works from Texas, and so she's doing a lot of the stuff that I either can't do or I've lost patience trying to do. So my website is kenmcqueen.com, and she's on there updating it from time to time. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and a few things like that, but I'm basically not very good at this marketing thing. So I figured I would hire help for things like that. So I've been very fortunate in hiring two good people to look after it. Mickey Mickelson, as you
Yep.
know, and Amy as well, and in Texas. So between the two of them, they keep me uh, focused more on just being a writer as opposed to being a marketer, because I'm not very good at that part of it. So
Know your strengths. Yeah,
yeah.
good. All right, so we wanted to talk a little bit about conferences and things like that. You just went to a conference in Toronto, I think you said.
No, actually, this one was your side of the border. It was the Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference, and it was in
Okay.
Seattle, or actually
Okay.
just across the way in Renton. And it was a wonderful conference, lots of writers. And I went for a couple of reasons. One, just to because they had some great workshops and agents and editors talking about the craft, but also I got my publishing contract through them because last fall I entered an unpublished writers competition that they staged, and I was a finalist in the mystery and thriller category there. Uh, and I didn't win, but as a result of that, I did get a publishing contract out of it. So to me, that was a bigger win than a little a
Nice. Yeah.
modest prize. So yeah, so that's how Wild Rose Press picked me up. I was very grateful for that, and so that was a good conference. I've also been at Thriller Fest. So there is myself and John Sanford at
Nice.
in New York. So I was hanging out with the A-list folk, And they that's a very nice conference. I'm hoping to go to it again this year in New York. It's been uh, a virtual one for the last couple of years, obviously, but that has incredible uh, wealth of great authors, and it's very craft oriented.
So so I will say I feel authors, even the big names, are much more approachable and down to earth than say going to some place where there's actors. I mean, there's a lot of actors that are that way too. But you talk to John Sanford, you got a picture with him right there. Whereas, you wouldn't be able to do that with a lot of big name actors. Oh, are you still there?
You're breaking up there, Stephen. I think we're reconnected again, are we? Hello.
Oh,
Oh,
there
we're
you are.
back. Sorry, I didn't catch all of that last one.
Yeah, I was saying how you got to go to a conference and talk to and get a picture with John Sanford, a
Mhm.
big name author. And I feel authors are very much more down to earth and they're more approachable and they're willing to talk to, they're not like, oh, you're not a best selling author. I'm not talking to you. I've never encountered that with
They
big name
are.
authors.
I totally agree. There were any number of Harlan Coben was there, and oh wow, a lot of them, and they are very approachable, very helpful. Linwood Barclay was there. Rick Mafina, who's a fellow Canadian, another. Uh, Both Linwood Barclay and Rick Mafina are former journalists who turned to fiction, and so I was interested to talk to them about some of their experiences in making that switch. So I really enjoy those conferences for that reason, the energy that they project and the helpfulness that they give a newbie like me.
Oh, oh, we were just are not having a good tech day.
We are glitching all over the place, aren't we?
Yeah. So, what was your main motivation for going to the conference?
Those were in this time it was. A bit of a thank you to the conference, Pacific Northwest Writers Conference, for giving me my start. And I also ended up as a judge for the unpublished thriller category this year. So I was one of many judges for that. So I wanted to give back a little bit to that and also to see what else is out there, who's breathing down my neck, with the next great book. And there's some great talent out there, I gotta say.
Yeah. And you mentioned workshops. Do you attend many of the workshops that they have at these conferences?
Yes, absolutely. It's a continuous learning curve for me, this whole fiction thing. And as you know, the publishing environment is so dynamic. You turn your back for a minute, and one of the publishing houses is amalgamated with another publishing house, and another publisher's gone down the drain, and you just never know what's going on. So it's good intelligence, I guess, to keep au courant on these things.
Nice. Are there any conferences, you don't have to name names, or any particular workshops or something that you were like, wow, that was not as good as I expected? Did you have anything like that happen?
No, I haven't really been disappointed with the ones, but I'm very careful where I spend my money. So
Right,
no,
right.
I'm going to another one in late in October, and it's in a nearby uh, suburban area called Surrey, British Columbia. But it's called the Surrey International Writers Festival, and it brings a lot of top talent from Canada and the U.S. So I will go to that one, and there will be a lot of great, helpful writers like Robert Degoni, who's a brilliant Saskatchewan, Washington State author who's done very well with his Tracy Crosswhite series, and he's written three great spy novels based in Russia. So he's another of my heroes. He did a little bit of journalism back in his day as well, but so he's a great uh, teacher. Hank Philippi Ryan is a wonderful uh, teacher as well. I've sat in on some of her workshops. Hank is a her, but she's very good. Yeah.
Um, I agree with you and understand the you got to pick and choose sometimes.
Hmm.
There's just so many popping up out there, and a lot of people are getting in on it, starting some, but then they're not always what you would expect. I know I went to one last year. It was a smaller one, a bunch of
Hmm.
authors I knew, but it was just so fantastic. Everybody, the energy, and everybody got ideas and thoughts and information, and everybody left with some new stuff. They were going to do another one this year, but there just wasn't as much interest. And I was like kind of astounded because everybody was so, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And they were purposefully trying to keep the conference small because they wanted it to be more intimate, which is what made it so wonderful. But then people still weren't interested. So what would you say to people how to decide and pick and choose whether they want to go to a conference and how to find the ones that are worthwhile and good for them? Got any
Well,
advice for
I
that?
think there are a lot of conferences that specialize, like the one I was just at and the one I'm going to in Surrey. So the one in Seattle and the one in Surrey, BC. They're more general uh, publishing authors, all sorts of genres, and also nonfiction. So those are good if you value some of the teachers and some of the workshops, which is why I I went there. And the Thriller Fest, which is in New York, is all purely, if pure and thriller can be put in the same sentence, purely thriller oriented. So that one is a definite go for thriller writers. It's an expensive one, but
Yeah.
it's all part of my training. I also went earlier this year to Wisconsin to something called the police. What was it called? The Police Writers Academy, and it was amazing. So I got to drive a cop car. I got to shoot virtual guns. I got to learn how you do a traffic stop, all that sort of stuff. And so that was it was a great con- uh, course, and it was all writers, all fiction writers in the most part, and that was a great deal of fun. But again, you have to pick your spot. So I call Wisconsin deductible USA because I can write some of this stuff off.
Well, I like that. I've not heard of that one, but I love that idea because a lot of authors, authors, do things with the police as far as
Hmm.
writing about them in their books, and we always try and make it authentic. So, whoever thought of doing a conference where it was a bunch of police teaching writers what they do and giving them that information? That's brilliant. We need
It
more of
was.
those.
I For anyone who writes a police procedural, I highly recommend taking a look at this. It's not
Oh,
always held in Wisconsin. It's occasionally somewhere else, but the person in charge of it is Lee Loftland, Leeloftland, and it will be going on again next year. And it's well worth it if you get the chance, and if you like me, not having to grow up, and so you get to drive a police car and do all sorts of cool stuff.
right. Well, see, now I'm thinking I want to start writing about race car drivers. We need to have a conference where we can have race car, and I need to do more science fiction so I can go up in a SpaceX spaceship or something. But if anyone knows how to do a conference on dragon riding, hey, I'll write about riding dragons. Let's get this going.
Yeah, well, good luck on that one. I think it's a little
Yeah,
easier than
yeah, yeah.
police procedurals, but I'm
But I
just
love
going
that
to.
concept because
Sorry.
it's for writers, but it's different than just hearing some of the same things about publishing or the craft of writing or this, that, and the other thing. Which there's nothing wrong with that, but after you've been to 4 or 5 conferences and it's a lot of the same type of material, it's good to know there's choices out there that are more niche and specialized.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to find. Here we go. Oh, I'm trying to find Lee Laughlin's. Anyway, his last name, if anyone is interested, it's Lee, Lee, and Lofland. If you Google his name, you'll
Okay,
find out about this police academy. He's a former cop himself, and he loves writers, and writers love him. And all sorts of really A-list authors have been at that conference, and uh,
nice.
and it's just a picnic for people. Three days.
I'm thinking, joking about the dragons and stuff, but seriously, there's so many script writing and streaming of abilities now. People want to learn more about that because there's choices all over the place. I wonder if someone already does, or why someone doesn't do a movie screenwriting type of writers conference focusing on doing that, how to publish your book, and that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Someone's got to be doing something like that, because that one sounds like
I
it'd be
would
a
expect that's the case. There's one of my writing books. It's called Save the Cat. I don't know whether you've heard of that one.
yep. Who doesn't?
It's a good one,
If
and
you don't have Save the Cat, get Save the Cat. There you go.
it it's a great book, and it was aimed at the screenwriters, but it also works for novelists as well. And
Yes,
if you start watching a movie, my wife will nudge me and go, "Save the
sure.
cat." I mean, it may not be literally a cat, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
some way to humanize even the worst people, because they'll do something a little out of character and kind of nice, and then they may not be the nicest person, but it gives an element of humanity to anyone that you're writing about.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Thriller Fest, and one of the authors I know, JD Barker, he's at
Mhm.
Thriller Fest almost all the time. He's the one that, at that conference I told you about last year, turned me on to Save the Cat,
Okay.
and using that. And it's kind of scary. It's like once you have that power, it's like Spider Man. You got to use it responsibly, because I'll watch something and I'm like, well, that sucked, but now I know why it sucked, and now
Yes,
I know
that's
what
true.
they screwed up on. Yeah,
Exactly.
so it's powerful.
Save the dragon. You got to work on your.
Yes, and then I'll do my own conference. I mean, who doesn't want to come to Lake Erie in the middle of winter to learn about dragons?
Yeah, and go ice fishing.
Yeah, we could go ice fish. That's, yeah, fish for dragons.
Yeah.
All right. So, Ken, any other thoughts or advice about conferences? Or I know you mentioned virtual conferences. I think a lot of them are getting back to in person, which I love, but I still like the virtual, because you mentioned the one in Wisconsin,
Mm,
and I'm like, it'd be a little harder for me to get to Wisconsin, money wise, time wise,
yeah.
but I'd be interested if they did a virtual. Whereas the Thriller Fest, which is in New York, that's closer, and I'd like to go to that one personally. So I think a good mix of the virtual and live is a good thing nowadays. What do you think about that? And do you have any other thoughts or advice on conferences?
Definitely there are virtual ones that I've gone to, and you can actually do quite a bit with them. Even Thriller Fest, the Thriller Writers International Thriller Writers organization, which I'm now a member of, a great honor in my view. But they have writing courses online where you can submit, and they have about, I don't know, 10 really good authors. Like when I took the course, it had Lee Child among them, and he was critiquing work and looking at your work online, and you can really advance your craft by taking some of these virtual courses, and they're pretty good value for money without having to even travel to New York. So that's something I highly recommend.
There we
Here
are.
we are.
So, technical issues. We'll get this edited as best as possible, so we sound like we're jumping all over the place. I don't. You were saying something about conferences, and sorry, I don't remember. It threw me off when we lost it.
Well, gosh, it was probably really profound, and it's lost to humanity now for
Oh,
all time. But
We all got to quit writing and change our profession now.
here I am recording from my Canadian igloo, and there are probably some technical difficulties. I'll put my recording on a dog sled and get it to you at some point.
There
But
you go. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, I think probably what I was talking about was we were trying to find value for money in these conferences, and I was saying, well, you were talking about there are some that are virtual, and
Yes.
you uh, feel that there's value in those, and I have to agree. I've been to several of those as well. You can't beat the in-person stuff, but
Not at all.
as I was saying, one of my favorite organizations, the International Thriller Writers, uh, has put a lot of energy into nurturing newbie writers, and they have a great online writing course where you get top level authors, usually about 10 of them, and they'll each explore one aspect of the writing journey, and they'll write about it. They'll have a prepared program, but you can also ask them questions, and they're very generous with their insights, and costs you a bit of money, but not nearly as much as flying to New York for a conference. And you have
Right.
this for all time on your hard drive, so you can refer back to it. So I've done that, and I got a lot of really useful insights from that.
And like you said, there's lots of things different conferences do, and you met your publisher. That's one thing. The workshops are definitely another, but the in person, just going to the bar and hanging out sometimes gets you insights, gets you knowledge, gets you friendships that can lead places. So I highly recommend if you're going to a conference, take full advantage of it. Do a pitch war if they offer it. Talk
Yes.
to publishers, check out other authors, sign up for newsletters, attend the workshops, go to the after hours goofy stuff, because basically maximize your money and time.
Absolutely, which can be a stretch for some writers, and I put myself among them. Are introverts in the main, right?
Right,
You have to do marketing. You have to break out of that and to meet people at a bar and all that stuff. um, you find once you do it and once you start talking to people about writing, uh, it's great. One of the courses I was at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association dealt with marketing, and it was all about everyone went into that thing going, "Oh, geez, I'm going to hate this," because it's terrible. But what the speaker said was, "You're not you don't look at marketing that way. You look at it, what makes you excited about your book?" And when you talk about what gets you excited about your book, it's infectious, and people will respond to that. And you realize at that point you're not marketing; you're just sharing your excitement, and it
right,
makes a big difference. And that was kind of like one of those times when the penny dropped, and say, okay, that I can understand.
right. Yeah, I always had the thought, well, if I'm writing a book, it's because I want other people to read it. I want people to enjoy it. Yes,
Mhm.
I will get pleasure out of them enjoying it, and that's why it's motivating me to do it. But if I don't get people to read it and they don't hear about it, so what's the point of writing then? It's like being in a band and making music. You make music because you want people to listen to it, uh, you know, but you got to get it out there somehow. So I think marketing just has a bad connotation for us when it
Yeah,
doesn't need to be.
yeah, I totally agree. The problem though is it's like hurting introverts. It's a very difficult thing to do.
Yes,
but
yes,
once you once you get over that fact, and as you say, the whole purpose of writing is to share it. So you got to figure out, all right, put your big boy pants on and learn how to share your enthusiasm for your product.
right. Yep. All right. So, Ken, we've had some difficulties. Sorry, I don't know what was going on with all that. But before we go, and I'll try and edit this so we sound like we know what we're talking about. So that'll be
Great.
good. But do you have any last minute advice for new authors?
Seat in pants, stare at screen, repeat daily. Well, I'm not one of these writers that says you have to write every day. I'm more of a 5 day a week writer because that was my work pattern unless I was covering a big story. But be professional, treat it as a job, uh, and really just put your seat in the pants, do your research, and let your imagination run free. I think it great. It's the thought I once thought when I was about 15, or not 15, say when I was about 23 or 24, that I should write a novel. I realized I didn't know enough about life to even attempt such a thing. So I think you can start writing at any point in your life. It's never too late, uh, or too early, but you may not have as much success early as you might think you do. But we all have life experiences, and we can color those into creating wonderful characters. So that's where journalism is a great gift. But there are any number of life experiences that would work well in fiction
Right.
writing.
Great. Well, appreciate that. So, Ken, it's been great talking to you. Good afternoon discussion for writers and about your book. And I want to wish you luck on that. I'll let you know when this goes live, and we'll have links in the show note to your website and to the book for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, kenmacqueen.com, MacQueen. That's someone told me that's a great writer's name, Ken MacQueen. I said, well, yeah, it's mine, and John D. MacDonald was already taken, and Alistair MacLean was already taken, so
Well,
I'll
I,
keep mine.
I joke that I should have made my pseudonym Stephen Ace because it's just one better than Stephen King. But I thought that was a way a little presumptuous. So, all right. You have a great day, Ken.
I've really enjoyed this, Stephen. You're a great interviewer and
Oh, thank
very
you. Appreciate
relaxing.
that. Great. Had a good time. Hi, if you enjoyed this episode of Discovered Wordsmiths, please support the author. Go to their website, go to Amazon, look them up, get the book. And if you click on the link that I have in the show notes, you'll also help support the podcast so I can keep the hosting and all the software I use and keep it running to help more authors. When I am recording this, we've got over 100 episodes, lots of authors. Go to the website, discoveredwordsmiths.com. Check it out. There's a lot of great authors, probably in some genre that you love. See what they have. Check out their books. That's what the point of the podcast is for. So people can discover new authors, find some new books they love, support the authors so they can continue writing. So please support them. And if you do like the podcast, if you've been thinking of podcasting or you're a writer, I've got some links also at the website. Click on those if you're interested in any of the software or services that I talk about. Everything that I have there is something I use, so I've got an affiliate link. Again, it's a little bit, if everyone clicked on those, if they were going to get it anyway, it helps keep the podcast going. So let's all help each other out and discover more authors to read.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.